Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing the top 10 fantasy series that I would like to start in 2021. The main reason why I'm making this video is because I want to hold myself accountable, because there are so many popular fantasy series that I've been saying for a while that I want to read, but I haven't got around to them yet. And I thought it might be quite fun to watch this video back in, say, 12 months and see if I actually did read the books that I said I wanted to read. So on this list I have a mix of adult and young adult fantasy, because I do tend to read both, although this year I did want to put more of a focus on adult fantasy, because I feel like I mostly read young adult fantasy last year. Also, I did just want to say that I feel like I'm really bad at describing books that I haven't read yet, and so if I do make any mistakes in this video, then I'm really sorry. But anyway, the first series on my list is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, because I have never actually read a Brandon Sanderson book before, and I don't know if I should admit to this, but up until last year I had never actually heard of Brandon Sanderson, because I wasn't really reading fantasy until last year. Like, that is my excuse. And so when I joined BookTube, I started hearing people talking about his books and how great they are, and now I feel like I really want to try and see if I do enjoy his books. So I think the first book in this series is called The Final Empire, and it's set in this world where there are people who can get magical abilities by eating metal, and we follow this guy called Farseer, who is one of these people who has this special ability, and he's putting together a group of people to try and overthrow the evil Lord Empire, or evil Lord Emperor of this empire. Everyone I know that's read this series has given it at least 4, if not 5 stars, and I've heard that Brandon Sanderson is really good at creating magic systems that are very detailed. Even though I have read adult fantasy before, I've heard a few people say that Brandon Sanderson, and in particular this series, is really good for people who are looking to get into adult fantasy, and so I'm really excited to see what it's all about. So next on my list I have the Farsia Trilogy by Hobb, which is part of the realm of the Elderling. So Hobb has basically created this series of books. I think there's like 12 or 15 books in total, and they're all split into individual trilogies, so you can read like 3 books at a time. I think that's how it works. And the Farsia Trilogy is the first trilogy in this realm of the Elderling series. Hope that makes sense. The first book in the series is called Assassin's Apprentice, and it follows a boy called Fitz, who is the bastard son of a member of the royal family, and somehow he ends up training to become the next royal assassin. That is literally all I know, but I have heard that Hobb is really good at writing characters, and I've heard that this series is very slow-paced and political, which I do tend to like that in fantasy books. I have heard that the Ship of Magic trilogy, which is the trilogy that comes after the Farsia trilogy, is slightly better, but I want to read them in publication order. Although if I do end up liking this book and I end up wanting to read the entire series, then I have a feeling that it's going to take me a while, because there are a lot of books in this series and it's quite intimidating. Next on my list is the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, and my cousin is going to be really happy to see this on my list, because she has been telling me to read this series since she read it last year. The first book in this series is called City of Brass, and it follows a young woman called Nari, who is a healer and a con artist, and she's in the middle of pulling off this con when she accidentally summons a Jinn warrior who sweeps her away to the legendary city of Daevabad, which is the City of Brass. I feel like I haven't read a fantasy series like this before, and my cousin absolutely loved it, and I've seen quite a few other people who have read this series and have talked about how it's really, really good. And I have heard that this is very political, which, as I might have said earlier, I do tend to like that in fantasy books. I've also heard that it has a lot of twists and turns, and that is something that I love in any book, regardless of the genre. I love a book that can surprise me and that can make me want to keep on reading just to find out what's going to happen next. Next on my list is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and I have mentioned this in a few videos, I think. I'm pretty sure that I put this in my 5-star predictions video. So this series follows a character called Rin, who is accepted to train at this elite military school. No one expected her to get into this school, and when she arrives she is targeted by her classmates because of her gender and because of the colour of her skin and because she's from the south, which is much poorer. But while she's at this school she learns that she has this gift for the art of shamanism, and the story follows her as she learns how to control this power. And then I believe the second half of this book takes a very different turn into war, which I think is pretty self-explanatory from the title because it is called The Poppy War. I have heard nothing but good things about this series. Everyone I know that's read it has loved it, and I also know that certain events within the book are inspired by actual Asian history, and so that sounds really interesting. The last book in this series actually came out, I think it was towards the end of last year, and I want to read it quite quickly. I have got the first book on my Kindle, so I'm hoping to get around to it soon because I want to binge read the whole lot as soon as possible in case I accidentally see spoilers. The next series on my list is The Burning by Evan Winter, and the first book in this series is called The Rage of Dragons, which I'll put a picture right here because the cover for this is absolutely beautiful. From what I understand, this series is set in a society that has been built around war, and you have these women, a select few women, that have the ability to call down dragons, and of the men in this world, some are born physically taller and stronger than others, and those that aren't born this way are destined to fight and die in this never-ending war. And we follow a man called Tao, who is one of these warriors, and I believe the main theme of this book is revenge. I saw one review that compared this book to the film Gladiator, which is one of my favourite films, and I obviously don't know how accurate that is, but I've also heard that it has lots of big epic battle scenes and lots of action, and so I do think it's the kind of book that I would enjoy. I'm also pretty sure that I heard that this was originally self-published, but it was so popular that it was picked up by a publisher and traditionally published with a new cover, and so it sounds like lots of people love it, and so hopefully I do too. Next on my list is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and I do actually own this book, the first book in this series, on my Kindle because I picked it up recently in a 99p deal, so hopefully I can get around to reading it soon, although I feel like I've said this with literally every book on this list. So this series is set in a world where clairvoyancy is illegal, and we follow a main character called Paige, who is a clairvoyant, and I think at the start of this book Paige is arrested and taken to Oxford, where she's put in this facility or this fortress where she learns what happens to clairvoyants when they are discovered. That's all I really know about this book, and I have heard that this is a series where it's better going into it not knowing too much. I've never actually read any of Samantha Shannon's books before, but I know a lot of people talk about her as one of their favourite authors, and I do really like the sound of The Priory of the Orange Tree, but that is a huge book, and so I wouldn't want to start it without knowing first that I do like Samantha Shannon's writing. Next on my list is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan, and this is a young adult fantasy that's set in this world where every year a group of girls are chosen or forced to become paper girls, which are basically the king's concubines. I think that's the right word. The story follows a girl called Lay who is chosen to be one of these paper girls, and she ends up falling in love with one of the other paper girls, and together they work together to take down this evil king. I actually used to follow Natasha Ngan's blog back in the day, like 8 years ago or something like that, and I have also read her other book, The Elites, which was the first book that she published, and it's been a long time since I read that, but I can remember that I did enjoy it. I couldn't tell you anything about it now, but I have heard nothing but good things about this series too. Next on my list is the Arc of a Scythe trilogy by Neal Shusterman, and this is another young adult series that's set in this world that is a utopia rather than a dystopia, because death has essentially been eradicated, so no one can die anymore from natural causes or otherwise. The only way that you can die is if you are gleaned or killed by a scythe. And the story follows two teenagers who are chosen to train to become scythes, and they start to learn that there is such a thing as a good scythe and a bad scythe. The concept behind this sounds so interesting, and I've heard a lot of people say that the main strength to this series is the world building, and that is something that I look for in fantasy books. I like a book that has strong world building. I've seen a lot of people reading this recently, and I think I have heard mixed reviews for the second and especially the third book, but I do at least want to give the first book a go and see if it is something that I like. Next on my list is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and this is set in a fantasy world that's inspired by ancient Rome, where anyone who defies the empire is at risk of being executed. And we follow a girl called Leia, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and her brother has just been arrested and accused of treason. So Leia gets in touch with this group of rebels to ask for their help in freeing her brother, and they agree, but only if Leia also agrees to become their spy by entering the Empire's military school. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot in this video, but I have heard so many incredible things about this series, and I know that the last book in the series came out in December. I think it's the 4th book. I think there's 4 books in this series, but I might be wrong. But it does seem like the perfect time to start reading this. So the final series on my list, which will probably come as a surprise to absolutely no one, is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. So this series follows a girl called Selena who is an assassin, and she enters this competition to become the next royal assassin. And because it's Sarah J Maas, I'm assuming there's some kind of romance at some point, but that's all I know, and that's all I think I really want to know. I have read Sarah J Maas's other series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I read it over the summer last year and absolutely loved it. A Court of Mist and Fury is probably one of my all-time favourite books of all time. I don't know what it is about this series that I find so scary, but I think it's because I did love the A Court of Thorns and Roses series so much, and also because it's quite big. There's 8 books in this series, and so it's a big commitment, but I am determined to at least start this series this year. Okay, so those are the top 10 fantasy series that I would like to at least start in 2021. Whether I actually do is a whole other question, but if you've read any of the series that I've mentioned on my list, then please let me know in the comments what you thought of them. If you liked this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.